Marcy Lundy. Today is Tuesday, September 24th, 2024, and this is the Cult of Kindness Podcast. I'm actually quite honored to have today's guest on. He is the creator of Pay It Forward 9/11. And as I told him before we started, with the Cult of Kindness being about kindness, I think that this is such a gift to have him on as he started this mission way before I did. So, welcome, Kevin Tuerff. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Marcy. It's wonderful to meet you and to talk to your listeners.
Yes, thank you so much. As I was saying, Kevin is the founder of Pay It Forward 9/11, and this was an experience that you created being stranded on 9/11. Is that correct?
That's right. I can share the whole story if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay. So on September 11th, my ex-partner and I were traveling, ending our European vacation, flying into New York City across the Atlantic Ocean. And just about 2 hours before landing, I noticed that our plane started descending, which is not a good feeling when I look at the GPS map and see we're over the ocean.
Sure.
And then a sharp turn to the right, to the north, and our pilot first, we were on Air France plane. He said first in French, something, 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 terrorism.
Mhm.
Okay. And then the next announcement was in broken English: due to a terrorist attack in the United States, we'll be landing in Gander. Now, I didn't even know what country Gander was,
Yeah.
but very soon I found that Gander was an island province in the North Atlantic Ocean, part of Canada, Newfoundland, Labrador. And I was the sixth of 38 large planes that carried a town of 9,000 people, brought in 7,000 refugees from 90 countries, and they took care of us for 5 days.
Wow. My goodness. So that morning, it was just, I can't even wrap my mind around the events. I happened to be asleep, and my sister called me and she said, "Wake up, we're being attacked." And just such a heartbreaking day. What went through your mind as you're taking this all in or attempting to take this all in?
Right. So one of the challenges we had was that this is a time when there were very little. So I had a cell phone, but no one had international coverage. There was no television, there was no internet, and so we had no way to verify anything of what was going on. And so it took several hours for the captain to come and give us the terrible news. The terrorists had attacked the World Trade Center, and that the towers had fallen, that the Pentagon had been hit, and another plane crashed in Pennsylvania. And we didn't, many of us couldn't believe it. We thought, well, he's not from America. He doesn't know how this doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't until several hours later, maybe 4 p.m. Newfoundland time, when there was like two phones on the plane that were built into the seats. If anybody remembers when you swiped a credit card in the phone and you could dial. And every time I tried to call my parents, who I knew would be worried they knew I was landing in New York City that morning.
Right.
And my company back in Austin, Texas, I knew they were worried, but I could not get through. And ultimately, I thought of an idea. I called my friend who lived in Amsterdam, who had just visited on my trip. And by this time, it's late at night in Amsterdam. And I said, "Is it true?" And he said, "It's really true. It's awful."
Wow.
So I went back to my seat. We'd been stuck on this plane. This tiny town, their airport could barely fit one jumbo jet, 300
Wow.
passengers. We had 275 on our plane.
Okay.
So they couldn't, even if they wanted to let us in the terminal, they couldn't because there were 38 planes. So we were stuck on the plane for many hours. And ultimately, I went back to my seat and told the people anywhere around me, like, "Hey, everybody, it really happened. It's really terrible." And there were audible gasps. And a woman behind us started crying because her son, or her two babies, were back in New Jersey. And the unknowing was the hard part.
Sure.
So, but ultimately, this town, in my book, Channel of Peace, Stranded in Gander on 9/11, I interviewed the mayor, who was mayor at the time and mayor for 20 years, I said, why did you take a chance? Why did you let people in, strangers? There could have been terrorists on these other planes, or my plane even.
Right.
And he said, we weren't going to let you rot on those planes.
Mm.
He kept saying, if people need help, you help them.
Yes.
And so that was really the beginning of a remarkable experience of experiencing kindness and compassion. I like to talk about how if the people there wanted to be kind, they could have sent thoughts and prayers to all the passengers on the planes. If
True.
they wanted to have some empathy, they might have sent out some water and boxes of pizza. But when
Oh,
they opened their borders, their communities, their churches, their homes, their showers to people, thousands of people,
yeah.
that was compassion, engaging in the suffering of others.
Mm.
And it was just incredible. So there wasn't a stove in Gander that wasn't turned on cooking for the people who were stranded there. There wasn't people who were donating clothes. And I'll never forget the one moment I had a credit card. I could have paid for a hotel room, but there's only 3 hotels, and those had to be used for the airplane crew.
Right.
So I'll never forget. Finally, we stayed at a community college, and next thing you know, we're told we're going to be sleeping on a floor of a classroom, the tile floor. They pushed back all the chairs. The teachers, students had come into the school to volunteer to help make us as comfortable as possible. There was tons of food there. It was amazing, and they had phones and they had televisions. So we finally, after 12 hours, got to see those terrible images of the attacks.
Right.
It was quite an experience.
Really. You're talking about the beautiful acts of humanity. And after it happened, I remember how we all came together, and it didn't matter what walk of life you were from, we were all unified. And it felt as though that was going to last forever, and over time, we started to fall apart. Um, what did it feel like for you to uh, experience such a level of selflessness?
It was truly amazing, and every time they offered food or a ride in a car to go get a shower or to go get clothes.
Yeah.
I kept trying to offer them money. Like, that's how I compute. I'll let me pay for your gas because you drove me a little bit. No,
Sure.
no, they said you would do the same. And
Oh,
we're starting to really cringe because, like, I don't know if we would. I don't know if I would.
right.
And so, but what they're talking about was the golden rule. After many years of talking about this and studying and realizing the golden rule is in every religion in the world: do unto others as you want them to do to you.
Right.
And so it's just said in different words, but it's a global uh, principle that we seem to have lost in many respects. And
Absolutely.
so, they said when we tried to pay them some money, no, no, you would do the same. So I couldn't pay them back for their kindness. So I borrowed an idea on the first, I went back to Texas on the first anniversary of 9/11. I said, I can't pay them back. And I borrow an idea from the film, Pay It Forward, where a fictitious boy creates a kindness movement where he does a good deed and then asks that recipient to do 3 other good deeds for strangers
Right.
and to ask them to spread it. So that's what we did. And we created Pay It Forward 9/11. It was just meant to be for the employees of my company. I had a
Wow.
marketing company in Austin, Texas, and 40 employees. So every year on the anniversary of 9/11, we'd close the doors of the company for several hours and let people, I would hand to make it fun, and with some incentive, I offered $100 bills to each team of 2 employees to go out into the community and do whatever they wanted and then come back and talk about it. And
Oh,
that's where the magic happened. And that's where we heard these amazing stories of true connection and people talking about how they didn't realize how nobody looks at each other in the eyes anymore until they had to step up and offer to buy a cup of coffee for a stranger or
yeah.
to help someone whose car was on the side of the road.
Yes. Yes. When I told my father that I was going to have you on, he was like, "Oh, please tell him that I, experienced that firsthand. Someone paid for my coffee, and not soon after you started this."
Oh, that's fantastic. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yes. What challenges have you come across while practicing this philosophy if you come across any challenges?
Well, there's always challenges with people in our society who are cynical of that there's a catch when you're
Yeah.
trying to do some act of kindness to a stranger.
Yeah.
What are you really doing? How much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
And I understand that. And so when I recruit volunteers to join us, like so here in New York, for the last 3 years, we've had a significant event where dozens of people, we get coffee donated from Starbucks, and we take it and we hit the streets, and one person holds the coffee box, the other one holds the cups and the stirs and the sugars and the milk, and the other person holds our wristband and a creamer, and then they explain why they're doing it. It's for 9/11, and we ask you to continue. And so my friend who's born and raised in Brooklyn, she said, Kevin, this is New York City. People are not going to take coffee from a stranger.
Right.
It's going to be poison in there.
Yeah.
And you know what? She was wrong, and
Mhm.
she admits it. And she's joined us for 3 years in a row doing this. And
Mm.
you do meet some people who are reluctant, but most people do, and they are happy to engage, and they immediately say, yes, I will pay it forward. I will do 3 more good deeds for strangers, and I'll do it in honor of those lives that were lost on 9/11.
That's beautiful. Uh, this past 9/11, I'm wondering if the emotions still hit you the way they did that particular morning or that day. And if so, is it just sort of an instant reminder that what you're doing is so important and worth it?
Yeah, yes, especially because I spent most of my life in Texas. I moved here in 2017 to New York City, and then ultimately was living in the Ground Zero neighborhood, and I'm working in the Ground Zero neighborhood now. And so I've actually met several people who were there. They were on, I was experiencing this great, experience of humanity,
Yes.
horrendous, violence and terrorism happening here in New York City that day.
Right.
But the people who I've spoken to, they believe that this effort, Pay It Forward 9/11, doesn't erase the tragedy or erase the personal terrible experiences that even survivors who were there experienced, but it
Right.
helps them reframe that day so that evil doesn't win, that kindness can win over evil, because we do these good deeds in honor of those lives. We say the names of the people who we are honoring as we are giving out a
Mm.
cup of coffee,
Oh,
and saying their
wow.
names as a way to keep their memory alive.
Oh, that's so beautiful. My heart was breaking that day just watching, how they had basically put on New York news. So we were able to see these people looking for their loved ones, and that was so heartbreaking. And how nice to say the names of the people lost. That's really nice.
Right. One of the challenges I see is, 23 years have gone by. We've had much suffering. We've had pandemics. We've had wars. But for those of us that were alive, we in a time before hashtags, we said we would
Yes.
never forget. And
Yeah.
we also, the words "united we stand" were prevalent everywhere. It didn't
Yes.
matter which political party or race or creed or sexual orientation, everyone was united. And
Right.
now we are so siloed. And so
Yeah.
my belief is that these simple little things, these interactions, that if you can get this going, it could really, millions of people could be involved and
Yeah.
help break through some of these barriers where people say, "Well, oh, I'm kind to my family. I'm kind to people who live on my street or my, but
Yeah.
for those people in that area or that state or that country, I can't be bothered with them." But come
Mhm.
on, we're all humans here. And this
Yeah.
is a way to practice that humanity. And as we know, the brain is a muscle, and with the
Yeah.
more you try doing this, with practice, you can be trained so that you'll want to do these things on a regular basis, because you actually experience what's called a helper's high. And
Mhm.
I did a TEDx talk about this, where after you do a good deed for a stranger, you get this temporary feeling of euphoria. The
Right.
the chemicals in your brain, the love hormones, they start firing off, and your blood pressure goes down,
Mhm.
and so who doesn't want to have that feeling?
Exactly.
So it's really really beautiful when I see this year we had, a school in near Nashville, Tennessee, far away from New York City, and they
Mhm.
committed to do 10,000 acts of kindness themselves. And they
Oh,
taught
wow.
the kids how simple things you can do that don't cost money. You
Yeah.
can sit next to a kid at school you don't know at lunchroom. You can open the door. You can help water the plants for your parents. You can,
Yes.
sweep the the patio, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
they just gave them very simple tips, asked them to write down every time they did it, and then they on a slip of paper, and they ended up creating this giant 20-foot word kindness. I'll
Oh,
have to send you a picture. It was just
please.
incredible.
Yes. That's so beautiful. I actually, on your website, I was checking out the part where the children can help in. There's a school here in Colorado that I'm a community partner with, and I forwarded it to them because I mean, that's so special to start with the children.
Yes, well, and
Yeah.
there's so many people. In fact, even one of our board members for Pay It Board 9/11 is a school superintendent in New Jersey. And
Okay.
he had me come tell my story on the first day of school to all the employees, because he says, Kevin, there are many teachers who were not even born on
Mm.
9/11. They might be
Wow.
21, 22 years old, and you don't think about it. So if they
No.
weren't born, they don't know what kind of a world it was like back then.
Sure.
And if they're not taught really the history and also the goodness, there was much goodness that happened here in New York and in Washington, where people, they stepped up. The hero, the first responder stepped up. The people
Yeah.
that wanted to donate blood, people, there was so much coming together, and people, there was compassion here.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things after the pandemic and still continuing our annual tradition,
Right.
I thought, why is it we do as uh, many people across the world come together and with compassion during a natural disaster, a
Right.
terrorist attack, a pandemic, but
Yeah.
why does it have to wait for that? It is in our DNA. This is how
Exactly.
we're supposed to operate, is to help others when
Exactly.
they need help.
Oh, and you're right. It's so sad that something tragic happens and then we fall back in line. But I think you're correct where you say if we use that muscle and we remember to do it regularly, maybe we'll stay on track. And also, maybe one of the nice things about that era before hashtags and smartphones, even though we fell out of place, we were in place for a long time in regards to being compassionate. It stuck around longer, I feel, than it may today, after a major event.
Yeah, no, in fact, I heard that when I moved here, people would say like, oh, people were so good. They were so kind to each other. And so I asked them, how long did that last? And so over the course of several years asking that question, the average answer was about a year.
Okay.
So that's pretty good, but
Yeah.
let's try to keep it going on a regular basis. Imagine that.
Right. Right, right. One of the things that's also very cool about your movement was a Broadway play was created, Come From
Called
Away.
Come From
Uh,
Away. Yeah,
yeah, if you could tell us about that.
sure. So, as I mentioned, I started my effort in 2002, and I wasn't able to go back and thank those wonderful people in Gander, Newfoundland until the 10th anniversary.
Mm.
And there was a reunion of passengers, and I just said, I've got to be there. So I went back, and after going back to that community college where I slept on the floor with other passengers who felt the same way I did, we continued. We had a scholarship for students of that college that are the passengers kept going for many years to help a student who is doing kind things for others.
Okay.
And afterwards, a couple, husband and wife, came up to me and said, "Hey, we got a grant to write a musical about what happened here. Could we interview you?" And I said, "Of course.
Wow.
I love musicals."
Yeah.
And I gave them my video footage that I had taken with my new digital video camera from back in that time, and I did a couple interviews, and then I forgot about it.
Hmm.
fast forward 2 years, I get a phone call. Hey, well, we wrote a musical called Come From Away. The term means that if you are not born on that island, you have come either as a visitor or as an immigrant. And so I was a come from away in that island of Newfoundland.
Yeah.
And so they said, we wrote a musical and you're in it. And I'm like, what? I mean, like the heroes are the people that were so kind to us. But I didn't realize they needed some passengers to help tell the story.
Oh,
So
wow.
my ex-partner and I are two of 12 major characters in this musical, which is now, it was a Tony Award-winning musical on Broadway, and it's now expanded around the world. It's Canada, UK, Japan, Korea, Australia, just opened in Spain. And if
Wow.
people want to see it, they can. There's a North America tour that's still going that you can look at comefromaway.com, or if you want to watch it on Apple TV, they did a Broadway video shoot of the production there. So that's the best way to see it.
Very good. It's available currently?
Yes.
Okay.
Apple TV.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, have you seen any long-term effects in your own personal life from creating Pay It Forward 9/11?
Yes. I mean, I think have, I, I realized this helper's high benefit because I do find myself, and it wasn't that I was never generous or didn't give to charity, but I'm
Right.
much more, had my eyes more wide open to experiences to see how you can help people very quickly. Like I might be approaching the subway and see that somebody is, as I'm exiting, I see someone just standing still at the turnstile.
Mhm.
Aha, they don't have the money to ride. They need to ride. Maybe they need to get to work. I'm going to give them a swipe. I'm going to swipe their
Right.
card, let them in, cost me
Oh,
$2.95. And they are so thankful. They don't want to jump the turnstile and cheat. But they just need some help. So things
yeah.
like that I do more often. And I had an amazing experience thanks to my church here in New York, St. Francis Xavier, that had
Okay.
a immigration accompaniment program where people that come to the U.S. who declare asylum, if they land at an airport or maybe come to the border, they're usually put in a jail and where they
Mm.
wait for their trial from an immigration judge to see if they have a credible claim that they are worthy of being granted asylum and given temporary protection here. And
Okay.
so, but the waiting time is usually 7 months or 12 months in a corporate run jail. Here in New York, it's near Newark Airport. And so our church, we sent people out just to go check on people and say hello and talk to them. And so I thought, what would the people of Gander do? If they saw this was happening in their town, I thought, well, they would go and visit. And so
Yeah.
I did that, and I ended up becoming friends with a man who was seeking asylum from Nigeria,
Mhm.
and he had a horrendous story, and he was uh, but he had no family, no friend. His wife and kids were stuck back at home,
Yeah.
and he had nobody here and no money. And so I thought I can go visit. And so it ended up being a remarkable 7 month experience to witness what he went through, how hard it is for him and his family. Long story short, he was granted asylum. A year later, his wife and children were granted the ability to come. And
Mm.
so again, I turned back to my people. What would the people of Gander do? Oh, they would outfit him with an apartment full of furniture because he doesn't even have a job.
Right.
So that's what we did. And there were so many people, especially people who've seen this musical,
Mhm.
they get it. They understand. People need help, you help them. And so
Right.
they, within a matter of days, we had clothes for the kids and toys and
Oh,
food and furnishings. And it was a great experience for me to be part of that. I'll never forget it.
yes, that's so beautiful. I mean, I like on the podcast to talk about the positive domino effect, and that's sure enough what's happening.
Yeah, we talk about the ripple effect. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite stories, if we have time, is
Yes.
the so in 2016, when I stepped down from my company, I had nobody to continue helping me spread the word. And so I asked the producers of Come From Away and the writers if they would help. And they said yes. So they started giving out $100 bills to the cast and the crew and the band and
Mm.
whatever city they were playing. And they would have them go out and do the same thing and then come back and talk about it, usually to the audience, theater audience, at the end of the show the next day. And so I heard this story. Now, here we are 15, 16 years after my first experience being influenced by Gander. The ripple effect is still going and going, throwing that pebble, it's still rippling. And so now the producers are using their money. They give money to a cast member and the stage manager.
Mhm.
And they said, you know what? This is great, $100, but we should help too. And so they dipped into their own wallet. And so each one contributed $100. Now they got $300. And they
Wow.
said, let's give this to this teacher, Peg, who lives in Northern Ontario. So this
Mm.
is another more Canadian kindness helping other Canadians now.
Okay.
And so the teacher goes and buys $300 of roses and
Oh,
has the kids tie little messages, remember 9/11, pay it forward, and ties little ribbons around there and sends the kids out into the community. And then the next day, she tells me about this pair of students where one young girl, she went into a supermarket and she saw a woman and she reported she did look like she was having a bad day.
okay.
And so I gave her the rose and she started to cry. And she said, how much for the rose? No, no, it's free. It's, if you want, you can pay it forward.
Yeah.
And she says, you have no idea how much this means to me.
Oh,
My daughter died yesterday.
oh, wow.
Ugh,
Oh my
just
gosh.
and then it gets even better because the child goes back and writes an essay on her experience writing. You never know what people are going through unless
Oh,
you go and talk to them.
yes. Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so special. Um, my husband does a really good job. He makes sure he says hello to everyone, whether they're looking or not. And early on, I said, well, why are you doing that? He said, because one, it makes me feel good. Also, like you just said, you never know what someone is going through, and that can turn their whole day around. That's
For
so
sure.
beautiful.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And how special for that child. They'll literally never forget that.
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah.
they are forever changed. And it didn't take a whole lot.
No, takes nothing. I think
Yeah.
that's what people fail to realize. They think that it's going to take some great effort. It's like, no, it literally can just be a smile sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Amazing. What one piece of advice would you give to someone listening who wants to spread kindness in their own community?
Just start with something simple yourself, just as you
Yeah.
said. It's, saying good morning, looking at people in the eyes. If you see someone who may be experiencing homelessness, I'm a big fan of Pope Francis, and he just gave a really powerful statement that said, don't just throw a dollar or a coin at the person and feel good about it. Shake their
Mm.
hand, touch them, look in their eyes, ask their name. And so I've started doing that, and it's not easy. And especially if somebody is maybe experiencing, mental issues,
Yeah.
but it is so worth it. And I, even just this past 9/11, I actually met a disabled veteran who's probably homeless, who was looking for money, but I stopped and talked to him and told him about my story, and he told me that he was here in New York on 9/11 and that he
Oh,
saw one
wow.
of the planes hit the building, and that from there he went into the military and served overseas. And perhaps that's where he lost his legs. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it was he was grateful
Mm.
just to have that conversation and to feel heard and seen, and I helped him out with a little bit of money.
How beautiful. Yeah, I live in downtown Denver, so there is a homeless population, and you do see people doing the act of kindness where they give the money but keep going. But yeah, there is a lot of value in stopping and having a conversation.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's not easy, but
No.
try it once and or try it twice maybe. And if you don't, it doesn't succeed, because there it will be a time when they will just be very grateful, even if you don't give them money. If you just say good morning and ask them what their name is and tell them you'll think of them or pray for them, and I think that does a lot.
That's true. How has paying it forward helped you personally, just day to day? Have you just automatically remembered, oh, I might be in a hurry here, but let me remember to smile at everyone? Or like how you said, if you see someone that needs a little fare to get on the subway, have you found it easier to remember?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe I have to, say I am by no means the kindness king, expert, whatever. Life is. I have lots of struggles and good days and bad days, and so I
Yeah.
do. I think sometimes I might have a quicker reaction to do something because it can be so quick, and that's what's fun about this. You don't have to really plan that far in advance. I could leave right now in my
Yeah.
apartment and find someone on the street within minutes and who
Sure.
I could make their day and they could make mine. And so um, I'm just more aware of really the benefits of doing it. It is, in our crazy busy world, it is hard to do this, but I can attest to the benefits of trying to do it on a regular basis, not just on 9/11, but throughout the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, Kevin. Well, again, it's been my honor to have you on. As I started the podcast back in 2020 when there was just such a loss of hope, and I wanted to do something that felt positive, and that's where this podcast was born. And thank you so much for starting a movement that quite a few of us are trying to uphold, and it's so beautiful, and out of such a destructive day that something beautiful was born from that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for what you do and promoting kindness. The world needs more of it, and I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story.
Yes. And if you could tell the audience where, I know you have a book, if you could let the audience know where they can find your book.
Yeah. My book is called Channel of Peace, Stranded in Gander on 9/11, and it is available on Amazon or many other platforms. And or you can go to channelofpeacebook.com and you can find a link.
Okay.
And my charity is payitforward911.org. And you can see we have a map that's still being updated. This year, we had people in many other countries even who have now joined this effort. So it's really inspiring to see other people who, even though they weren't impacted, they believe this is worthy to honor those who died. And because it was people from all over the world who died that day.
Yes.
And so we have a map. You can be inspired by people across the world what they're doing.
Ah, wonderful. Thank you so very much. And thank you for being on the Cult of Kindness podcast.
Yeah. Best of luck.
Oh, thank you. All right, all. I love you all. Take care.